Sometimes, Dead Cells can be a pretty tough game. And because of that, I decided to make a guide showcasing 10 builds today that are very strong in the current meta for Brutality. I'll get to tactics and survivals at another time, but for now, here are 10 really strong builds for the current 1.9/2.0 meta. And just a quick little disclaimer, all of these builds are meant for 4/5 boss cell difficulty, so differences in item gear, changes to biomes, scroll counts, stuff like that, might not make some of these work quite the same in lower difficulties, but they should still all be viable down there if you're stuck in like 2 or 3 BC. So yeah, let's just jump into the list with, it's not like really ordered, but let's just jump into the list. Alchemic Carbine is currently one of the most powerful items in all of Dead Cells. With one shot, almost every enemy in the game will die in like a second or two, but also because of that, the new changes to poison mechanics in 1.9 will cause that poison to spread. So if you kill something like a bat or a rat or even just like a inquisitor in a large group, it tends to just spread and kill everything in that room pretty much instantly. And elites go down just as fast, and then when you combine it with Hokuto bow, it shreds bosses even in seconds. And really there's nothing that the build can't handle. You can go to all the hardest biomes in the game for you. The enemies will melt in seconds. And thankfully, because of that, it also means you're able to go to the harder bosses like Conjunctivius or Giant. And Giant technically harder. And their health pools will just shred in seconds. Because all you gotta do with Carbine is shoot and they die. Even-handed King, I think he's the hardest boss at the moment. And he doesn't stand a chance currently against Carbine. It just shreds his HP super, super quick. And for skills, you can just go with the consistent dot setters. Corrosive Cloud and Flamethrower, I think they're the two best for damage over time builds. And they pair really, really well together because you get the burn and oil, poison, and bleed dot at a constant rate, and it covers a giant area. That said, if you find something like a cleaver, a lacerating aura, a colorless turret, magnetic grenade, stuff like that, that has good synergy with what you're going for, feel free to take it. Totally good. Mutation-wise, pretty easy. You're just going to take Gastronomy. That's going to be your main heal source. And because we're playing on red, that means we can be a little bit more bulky. And we can use stuff like Gastronomy to break that bonus food going into new biomes if we don't need it. Or use it to get that massive heal off when we're hurt. And since we're playing red, we can use Soldier Resistance for extra bulk with that, as well as Melee's Protection a bit. And also Vengeance. That will help us from like slashers or rampagers killing us in one combo. And that way, and also with Vengeance, if you get hit, that's going to increase the dot damage instantly. So if you're fighting a scary elite or a boss and you get hit, it's just going to make you more strong and more resistant to their damage for a few seconds. For late game bosses, make sure you swap Gastronomy and Soldier Resistance for Dead Inside and like Triage or Disengage or Tainted Flask. Those are kind of my preferred three. And you'll be set. Overall, I think Carbine is one of the most efficient damage sources in the entire game. And even if you don't find that perfect Hokuto bow, you're good. And you can also pair it with things like a Blood Shield, other offhand items if you want. But yeah, Hokuto plus Carbine, super great. Despite getting a lot of its biggest strengths, like the 6-second Flamethrower nerfed to 12 seconds, Oil Sword builds are still super, super strong. And really easy to build around. The only thing you need is a fire source, like a fire grenade, flamethrower, or my preferred is dual bind Firebrands. And one of the best things about it is that it has a really good breaching power, probably one of the best in the game, because you will throw the Firebrand and then you'll hit them with a 2-swing crit, and they'll be dead. The first swing won't crit, but the second swing will, and almost everything will be dead, enemy, like regular biome enemy-wise, in 2 swipes. And that breaching power makes it super, super strong in biomes. You can't go to Mamatic really, because fire, obviously. You can, but it's not going to be ideal. So, stick to Conjunct or Concierge. But what you're really going to look for is, ideally 2 affixes on the Oil Sword. Obviously, if you can get bonus to burn in oil and poison, you're going to get 180% damage boost really easily. But if you can just get like the plus 100% damage from either bleed and electric, I guess, but if you can get like over plus 100% damage, you'll be good. You gotta fish a little bit, but it's nothing too hard. But be careful you don't spend all your money chasing affixes still. Still an issue. Just if you're spending too much money and you just see the bonus to bleed, go with that. So other than the flamethrower or fire grenade or whatever we want to use, Lacerating Aura is really good. It helps with bats, helps with just kind of increasing that breach power to get that kill off in 2 swings. Cleaver can be really good depending on what you have. Corrosive Cloud is great right now. Just to make sure you always sort of have that dot, all those dots going off. Corrosive Cloud's great for that. Personally, I think Flamethrower should always be in the build, even with the dual-bound Firebrands. And that's so you can always have a crit going off. Plus, Flamethrower is just great in general. And it'll keep a fire dot on the enemy the entire time. Mutations is kind of down to preferences for a lot of these melee-based red builds. You can do things like combo, Instinct with Master of Arms, Berserk, Frenzy, Soldier Resistance, Dead Inside, Open Wounds, and tons of others, depending on how you like to play your melee build. I like Frenzy and either Soldier Resistance or Dead Inside, and then either like Master of Arms or Open Wounds, kind of depending on what the current affixes are for my weapon. For bosses, just Dead Inside, Master of Arms, and like Vengeance. For like once you get to Giant and Hand of the King, or Timekeeper, it works well on Timekeeper as well. But yeah, that's Oil Sword. You kind of want play Oil Sword if you really like going fast through a biome in one shot and most biome enemies. It's great for that, and it's still really good on boss fights. Swift Sword. Swift Sword has been kind of known as like one of the better biome clear weapons in all of Dead Cells. Just getting crit after crit as long as you have that speed boost moving between enemies. And in 1.9, got even better. I did get a slight nerf with Frenzy, getting hurt a little bit. A little bit of a nerf to Frenzy, but again, 2 great new bonuses. The first, not so much, but definitely viable, is the combo rework. The percentage-based increase really buffs any red build using it, but with Swift Sword, it just makes its biome clear and power insane. But even more important than that was the rework to Tonic. Since with the new shot mechanics, you can really easily get a Tonic in either your first or second item shop, you'll be really good at always getting it. And what Tonic does, among all the 9 billion other things it does, is it gives you a speed boost. It doesn't say it gives you speed boost, but it does. So that means you can get crits on demand anytime you're at a lull between enemies, and combine that with Instinct with Master of Arms and Frenzy, and you'll pretty much never have to worry about the biomes, because you'll always have crits available to you, even if you have to wait for a second or two. And you'll always have your Tonic up as well, which means you don't have to worry about melees as much. You don't need to worry about HP as much, because you get a shield. It gives you bonus affixes, sometimes like electrocutes nearby enemies, helping you with bats, stuff like that. But also, really important, it means that you can take Tonic into boss fights. Before, with Swift Sword, you'd have to take Masochist to either get hit by Giants' Fallen Rocks, Timekeeper's Fallen Swords, or drop into Hand of the King Spikes, which wasn't as big of a deal. But now you don't even need to take that. You can just take Tonic with Instinct with Master of Arms, have a bunch of easy affix boosts and whatnot, that bonus HP bar, and still begins crits off with a Swift Sword for most of the boss fight. I prefer dual bind with Swift Sword, but take a shield, a Hokuto bow, whatever you want, and then just like a Lacerating Aura or a Cleaver or a Flamethrower. A powerful grenade can work for like things like Golems and Earthshakers. But yeah, that's Swift Sword. Infantry Bow, kind of a tricky one to recommend. It might just kind of be my bias of how much I love Infantry Bow lately. But this specific build, I've already talked about a little bit before in past videos, is so good and efficient that I feel like I'd be like doing a disservice to not recommend it. So the basic idea is that you get Instinct with Master of Arms, and with Infantry Bow's super easy crit condition of just being near an enemy, you'll always have that going off. So you bind the Infantry Bow to the same attack button as Grapple Hook, and Grapple Hook, once you get into late game, is going to give you like a plus 2,000% damage on your hits, and since it has a low cooldown, you'll begin the grapple hook every other shot, basically, with the infantry bow, if you're critting them. And then you add an infantry grenade on top of that, which also has that really low cooldown, and gives an area of effect as well to help you with, like, clumps of enemies. And it returns arrows. So all those combined, bound on the same button, means you're just going to one-shot any biome enemy. And you're also going to disrupt boss movement, meaning they're going to get stun-locked easier, and shred them super easily. It also stun-locks Mamatic for bosses. I mean, you can go to that fight, but every boss melts to it, pretty much. Lastly, for the final option for your offhand, you can go with a shield if you want, like a blood shield, but also you can take something that gives you a long-lasting dot, like Alchemic Carbine is 6 seconds, Blood Sword is 12 seconds of bleed, even Electric Whip off color, you can take that and give a 3 seconds of shock, I think is what it is, 3 or 4, but yeah, you can do that, and then you're just going to take the same mutations as we took with the Alchemic Carbine earlier, and Gastronomy and Soldier Resistance, because those are going to give you that bulk to last through biomes, plus that damage boost going into biomes if you don't need the food, and then just Master of Arms, and then for final bosses, you'll swap Dead Inside and Vengeance for like the late game stuff. It takes a bit of fishing, like I said, but even if you don't get like the absolute perfect build of like plus bonus to poison and then a poison source, like Alchemic Carbine, it's still going to do a ton of damage, and the damage output is absolutely worth it. So, Sadist Stilleto, it is sort of just like a sheer powerhouse, still one of the best you can get. Really, all the like minor nerfs around it, like the bleed changes making it so you might lose your crit on a swipe sometimes, didn't hurt it at all, because you still have things like Cleaver, Open Wounds, and Phaser, just Open Wounds in general, an offhand throw knife, a blood shield, Corrosive Cloud, all those to add a bleed effect to enemies really easily. Lets you go for either massive cooldown reduction on things like your Lacerating Aura, your Corrosive Cloud, your Tonics, or you can just focus on like all-out offense with it. Use the knife as like a damage machine with like a Hokuto buffing it up. And really, like, what's great about the Stiletto is it offers a sheer amount of creativity that nothing else really has. It's sort of, if you see something you like, you can splash it into that build, and as long as you have that bleed source or your poison source, you're gonna have that power. And, you know, you want to kind of fish a little bit for bonus to bleed and bonus to poison, but even if you can only get one thing on it, it's going to have the damage it needs to kill most biome enemies in a couple swings. And every boss is easy to go with it. Mutations, again, go with the basic red melee stuff. Frenzy, Vengeance, Soldier Resistance, combo, whatever your preference is. Berserk is a great one. Yeah, so that's Sadist Stilleto. Now, to this day, Spike Sword and a Shield, I think it's the most probably the most consistent build you can run. Obviously, you know, we have the Exodia build now for green, but Spike Sword and Shield is still super good. You basically can out-heal the damage you're taking by full blocking with a shield, and then using Frenzy and Vengeance to just shred through enemies with your crits. And it translates into boss fights too. You can just block the giant's punches or Timekeeper's little shurikens that she throws and take almost no damage, and then use the Spike Sword to shred them. And it gets better as the game goes on. Because Frenzy's getting buffed and Vengeance is getting buffed, your Spike Sword's damage is really amping up with that. The only thing you really need to make it work is a shield, obviously. And the more bulk your shield has, the better. You want to get that affix that is plus 7% to blocking on it. But also, you want a burst option. Lacerating Aura for, like, rats, so you don't get swarmed. Powerful Grenade, Knife Dance, stuff like that. Mutation-wise, super simple. Almost the entire run, Vengeance, Dead Inside, Frenzy. You're going to full block, you're not going to take melees, and you're going to heal back. One flaw is that in mid-game, the damage kind of adds up a little bit, so you will probably need to use a potion in that, like, Stilt Village-ish range, but once you're in late game for like Sepulture and High Peak Castle, you're gonna literally be out healing enemies with ease, just with that block and crit setup. Other than that, you probably won't get a lot of 60 doors unless you really want to go for them, because they're going to be full blocking and you're going to take damage, technically. So you need to manage your money a little bit. And then watch out for like slammers who can ignore your shields. Conjunctivius can also be an issue a little bit, because she can be annoying to chase down with your crit timer. It's only 8 seconds, I think, after a block. Though she's still easy. You can still beat her really well with it. But yeah, just make sure you have that really good shield. It doesn't even need to be a matching color. Something like a Cudgel will work, because it has a good block percent. Rampart obviously is great. Any of those will work. The more damage it blocks, the better. Alright, so moving on. Bleed spam. Super, super good ever since the reworked bleed mechanics in 1.9. So what happened between 1.8 and 1.9, if you don't know, is that for every 5 dots of bleeding on an enemy, the dots will combine to do all of that damage in one burst. So the strongest version of that in my mind at the moment is to dual bind, throw knife, and blood sword. So on that first 2 swings with the blood sword, you'll throw off a throw knife with it. Sets 3 dots, and then if you take open wounds with it, you'll add another 2 dots with each, 1 dot with each swing. So 2 swings and a throw knife, 3 plus 2. I'm pretty sure I'm doing the math right. That's 5. So yeah, you'll get that burst in every 2 swings, basically. And then if you add a knife dance, corrosive cloud, or cleaver, any combination of those 3 into the mix, it just means your blood is constantly going off. And it pops almost every enemy in a single combo, and then it shreds over to bosses. Translates over to bosses, shredding their HP bar like that. Really just shredding through them. Of course, you need to keep open wounds as one of your mutations. Combo's really good with it. Built for biomes, which is just going to help that 2 swipe shred through each enemy. Not necessary, but you know, it's good. You can take open wounds. You need to take open wounds, obviously. Other basic things: Frenzy, Soldier Resistance, Dead Inside, Vengeance, etc., etc. For late game bosses, Hand of the King and Spoiler Boss, you might want to, if you don't quite have that damage to phase transition, you might want to swap out open wounds for Ripper, possibly, or one of your other mutations. What this will do is we'll make sure you never run out of knives, because the blood sword is returning your knives with each swipe. But yeah, just always have your blood going, overwhelm them with bleed, and they're good. So moving on. On paper, Impaler doesn't actually seem like it'd be such a powerful option. It has kind of that fringe crit condition. You have to have enemies against a wall, and it's lower natural damage per second. I think it does like less than a non-crit Hayabusa Gauntlet. So it already looks like it has a couple of big issues on paper. However, there are a few things that really like push it towards being an excellent weapon. The first is that it has a really good reach distance and attack speed. So you can take the melee mutation, and that will slow down enemies with that quick attack animation. Every 2 swipes will just keep them really slow. And then the Spirit itself will disrupt their attacks, meaning it'll kind of stun lock pretty much every single enemy in the biome. While having that slow effect and enough distance to where if they do get that attack off, you can react on something like a Rampager. But it also strikes through enemies, so you can, if you have just a large group like 4 rats, a slasher, a catcher, and a inquisitor, you can sort of push all of them back, and it'll push through those enemies, which is really, really nice. So yeah, it strikes through those enemies, and you combine that with the Lacerating Aura, and you sort of just chip through every biome in the game with ease. And obviously, you know, biomes are great, but you need to kind of look at boss battles as well. But thankfully, Monotic gets crit with the Impaler, so you can just go to Monotic if you have the Bad Seed DLC, or Concierge, because he's easy, if you don't have it. But another notable thing of it is that it can float in mid-air, so you can jump up and hit the giant's hands twice really easily, get a bunch of damage off on him. And it also pairs really well with a shield. especially something like a frontline shield to get that, so-so damage bumped up. And a shield like frontline shield or blood shield will destroy giant, Hand of the King, Timekeeper, all those late game bosses super easy. So yeah, you're not gonna have insane damage on those boss fights. You're gonna need to know the patterns a little bit, but with stuff like Dead Inside and Vengeance making your life easier in those, you're gonna be fine with it. And its chip style and biomes is just too good to ignore. And then moving on, Crowbar. It's got this like really unreliable crit condition until you take the emergency door. And while the emergency door might seem kind of like a joke, it's off color because it's only purple, and Crowbar, this is the red version of it. It really does have some nice utility. We don't have to worry about the issue in 1.8 where it would take up to your scrolls anymore, because they got rid of that in 1.9. Crowbar can actually hard counter tentacles, so in Conjunctivius you can just plant it down and slowly walk back and forth. It also has some unique things. It can act like a manual stun grenade to roll through enemies and just like pause them in place as they try and attack. But mainly you're going to be using it for crits, and that crit damage is really good actually. It's about the same as a Vorpan, but it's a reliable, the Vorpan, if you can't roll behind the enemy and get a crit off, the Crowbar you can. So it's really good for this like all-out offensive type build. Pair it with like a offhand Firebrand or Boy's Axe, or a shield if you want, but pair it with like a Boy's Axe to stun lock enemies. Just take something like a Cleaver to give you those status benefits. If your Crowbar has bonus to poison, get a bonus to, or a Toxic Cloud Cleaver, Flamethrower, and also your offhand style with like that Boy's Axe or Firebrands is gonna help with bats. So it's gonna kind of just break through enemies using Instinct with the Master of Arms, because you're always going to be able to have those crits up, as well as those Cleavers / Flamethrower / Lacerating Aura / Powerful Grenade, all those up really easily. The one thing I would note is to be careful in a couple of bosses, particularly Hand of the King. He's this real fat jerk, so sometimes he'll break your door before you can, and then you won't have your crits, which equals a bad time if you don't know the boss pattern. But just be careful with your crits, you'll be fine. Break the door, like toss the door into the arena before the fight starts. Wait for the timer to reset. Break the door as you enter into the fight. And then you'll have another door as soon as that one is running out if you need. But yeah, Crowbar, really strong, really fast, glass cannon type, all-out offense build. Now lastly, Torch plus Hokuto. Really similar to Alchemic Carbine plus Hokuto, but Torch is one of those weapons, just like Carbine, that you get one hit and they're going to die in a second. You can just continue on your day and they'll die. You combine that with Hokuto and it works even better. But what separates it from the Carbine is its ability to take advantage of mutations more, namely open wounds, because with open wounds going on, the Torch puts 2 burn-in dots, and then you have a bleed dot as well with that open wounds, meaning that your Hokuto is just gonna pop them in a second. Same with elites. Obviously, Momotic is no good with this build. Avoid Momotic. Try and avoid enemies in water as well. But one thing about this build is that even on something like a demon, the bleed dot, you smack him with the Torch twice, and that bleed dot with the Hokuto is gonna kind of make them a non-issue, despite the fact that they're immune to fire. And then what really makes it strong is the fact that Burn in Oil is such a easy thing to get with this build. Obviously, you have a Torch, and then all you need is an oil source from a freaking Cleaver, Corrosive Cloud, Oil Grenade, the 7 billion red items that give oil. So you get that. If you can get that Burn in Oil damage on your Hokuto bow, you're good. And then if you can get like a bonus to bleed on your, or a bonus to poison on your Torch, it's just gonna shred through bosses, make him a complete joke. There's nothing really that can handle that power. So yeah, Torch plus Hokuto is probably one of the best boss killers in the game. It's my favorite build to run in the entire game, actually. And nothing can really handle just the pure destruction it provides, besides Momotic, obviously. Don't go Momotic with this if you can. You can win it, but it's not ideal. But yeah, with that, I just want to say thanks so much for watching. I know I haven't been nailing it with the edited content the last few weeks. That's not a word. Weeks. But I'm working on fixing that, improving. Thanks again for all the kind feedback towards my cat. He's doing a lot better. He's an old fart. I'm 26 and he's 25. So, you know, he's just getting old. But he's been doing a lot better, and I've really appreciated the couple of comments I've gotten talking about, hey, I hope your cat feels better. Don't worry about editing the videos. Take your time, etc., etc. Kind of going a little off script on that, but yeah, I really did appreciate that. I'm really glad that I'm finally about to get this video out, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Please give me feedback for it, and thanks again for your patience on all that, and I'll see you when I get to tactics. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it.